In Chinese classics, poetry, and folk songs, luminous, moving light, or luminescent fire were mainly used to describe those small, glowing insects. Today, everybody is used to terms fireflies or lightning bugs. Among those legends of fireflies, the most profoundly memorable story has to be the one about how someone used a bag of fireflies to read books at night, which kids learned in elementary school back in the early time. Back in the Jin dynasty of ancient China, there was a man named Chu Yin. His family was too poor to buy oil for the lamp for reading. In order to have the light to read, he used a see-through sack filled with fireflies to provide the light to read. Most probably this story is the reason why fireflies not only were the inspiration to the ancient writers and poets, also made a good example that ancient people did include fireflies in their daily routine. As most people remembered, fireflies were the kind that could glow and fly, just like a little fellow walking around with a lantern. In fact, those fireflies mostly belong to nocturnal and luminescent species. Males have a pair of well-developed eyes that enable them to find the luminescent females in the dark. However, these big eyes are very sensitive to outer light. They always try to keep away from the light whenever possible. Even if it is a small area in the shade, it can become their shelter from the light. In many cases, for those fireflies that is glowing in the dark, only little light will stop them from doing many normal activities. Therefore, in order to make advanced observation and records, it needs to do it under the infrared and used the astrophotography systems, so their natural behaviors can be observed correctly. Firefly is an insect that belongs to the Coleoptera, and in most people's mind, it is a small flying insect that is nocturnal and luminescent. Surprisingly, in the etymological classification, there are some species that are active in the daytime and not capable to glow at all. Also, there are some species that are capable to be active during the day and night. They mostly cannot glow either. These small insects that cannot glow, according to scientific studies, the main reason why they are classified fireflies is that their larvae, on the other hand, can glow. Somewhat unexpectedly, there are some species of fireflies are active during the day and cannot glow. Perhaps it is beyond many people's knowledge in this unique case. If we look at it from the evolutionary changes and the adaptive functions point of view, adult fireflies are short-lived, and most of the species live no longer than 2 weeks. Moreover, some species live only as long as 3 to 5 days. Their only mission to live is to breed. As a result, the female in many species is bigger than the male, and it doesn't like to fly. Furthermore, there are some species that some of their females' body parts have degenerated in order to concentrate the energy for laying eggs. The most obvious parts are their wings and head. You can tell easily if they are compared with the males. The structure of the female's head, especially the eyes and the antennae, obviously they have degenerated much more than the males. It is also the common characteristic in female fireflies among many species. In some species, the 6 legs of the female fireflies have degenerated into a small section, and the whole abdomen is like a leather sack filled with eggs. Can you imagine that this is also a firefly? Of course, if you have a chance to see it glowing in the dark, you will understand why it is also called a firefly. Female fireflies can be roughly categorized into 3 different types by the condition of their wing degenerate. The first type is that its wings have not degenerated. They are the same as the males, which are still able to fly. The second type is that its front wings have degenerated into semiptera and become flightless. The third type is called the worm-like or the larva-like. Its wings have completely degenerated and left only a small part as a small patera. In some species, the wings have even degenerated completely, that it has nothing left to show. Although the female fireflies have many different types, still fireflies mainly are classified, studied, and named based on the males. They are like other insects. Each body has 3 main parts: a head, a thorax, and an abdomen. In some small-sized species, their outside appearance looks exactly like a small beetle. But there are some large-sized species people think that their appearance is so unusual that it looks like a cockroach. The main reason possibly are the dark-colored wings and the structure of a piece which covers the head near the top of the head. That is unforgettable to many people. In etymology, that piece of structure is called a pronotum. How a firefly classified and named is based on the colors of the appearance and its patterns. This is a yellowed thorax black-winged firefly in Chinese. It is because it has an orange-yellow pronotum. And this is a red thorax black-winged firefly in Chinese. It is because it's orange-red pronotum. This one has black wings and a sun-kissed yellow thorax, with a clear black pattern in between. It is called pattern thorax, black-winged firefly in Chinese. And the large grouped Lynchurus, its characteristic is that at the front border of its thorax there is an area of transparent window-like piece, so that it is called a window firefly in Chinese. Beside the pattern of its pronotum on a firefly, its color and design of the wings are also one of the sources for naming in Chinese. These were the most commonly seen fireflies near the plain and the field in the early time of Taiwan. They have black wings with yellow thin line pattern at the edge. Therefore, they are called yellow edging fireflies in Chinese. This species then is called tipped black firefly in Chinese. It is because it has a black mark on the tips of its orange-brown wings, so it gets its name. And this firefly, its appearance is similar to tipped black fireflies, except of its body is bigger, so it is called large-tipped black firefly in Chinese. Talking about the sizes of the fireflies, recently, in recognition of all species of Taiwan, these are the earliest found fireflies in Yunnan province in China. They are named Lamprigera yunnanus. The female's body is long. It is as long as 3 to 4 centimeters, or it can be longer. The male's body, on the other hand, is only about 1.5 centimeters long. Some of the bodies of Taiwanese mountain windowed fireflies have the same sizes in both sexes. They are similar to Lamprigera yunnanus and both belong to the large-sized species of Taiwan. And the recently found species of the smallest fireflies has to be the male of the patterned firefly. Its body is only 0.5 centimeters. It can be easily comprehended and realized how tiny it is if it is compared with single rice side by side. Patterned fireflies belong to the Luciolinae. The describing character 1 of Luciolinae is Chinese to describe the flashing light. Therefore, those species that belong to the Luciolinae, their flash sequence is a pretty typical and twinkling light. Relatively, some species, especially such as Lampegaria unanus and many Luncherius male fireflies, the light they produce is unlike the Luciolinae's. It does not twinkle, but it is a long-lasting and continuous light. The Lynchnurus and the Luciolinae are the two big groups in Taiwan. There are near 30 species, which takes 70% of the well-known species of Taiwan lately. They are not only having more species, but also in larger groups. We can see fireflies at night that are mostly luminous Lyncherinus and Luciolinae, these two big groups. The light organ of the firefly is located in the abdomen, where the light-producing chemical is stored. After an enzyme process, the chemical energy from the reaction is transformed into light. The light production in fireflies is very efficient. The whole process, only 2 to 10% of the energy is turned into heat. The rest is used to produce light. As a result, the light it produces is cold light and produces no heat. Of course, it will not burn the hands. Most of the male fireflies have 2 segments in their light organ. The light organ in female, then, is slightly different with different species. The male's light organ of the Luciolinae has only 1 segment. Many Luncherinus, their female light organ is dot-like in 2 lines side by side. Some individuals are in 2 pairs, some are in 3 pairs. However, for the male, its light organ is still in 2 segments. There are some species their light organ is more unique, such as the female firefly of Lampegaria unanus has a pair of light organs at the tip of its abdomen. They look like the letter U. Different species, besides the shape of the light organ is unlikely the same, there are some differences between the color of light and the frequency of the flashes. And the frequency of the flashes is the important accord of how they recognize each other, attracting mates, and finally breeding. When it is the time for fireflies to become an occurrence stage, it is their breeding season. Every late afternoon, when the sky is getting dark, the male fireflies will gradually crawl out from rocks, mounds, and under some fallen leaves, where they hide temporarily during daytime, and fly to the sky. Each species has its own well-defined flash sequence. The male firefly flies in the dark, is to find the female firefly. Different species mainly rely on their distinctive flash frequency to find the right mate and complete the mission of breeding. Although in the world of fireflies, flashing is the main way of many species to mate, however, it still needs to match other conditions in order to complete the purpose of breeding. Especially the diurnal fireflies cannot depend on their flashes to communicate between 2 sexes. The female of these species, like many other insects, can give out a distinctive pheromone. This so-called pheromone is a scent that can be sprayed in the air. The male firefly uses its remarkable antenna to feel the direction of the scent and is able to locate the female firefly very fast. This is how they can communicate with each other and are able to mate and breed at last. Firefly is classified as an insect of the Coleoptera. Naturally, its life has to go through 4 distinct forms. They include adult firefly, egg larva, and pupa. Each change of form is completely different from each other. Therefore, firefly belongs to complete metamorphosis type in etymological term. More interestingly, in a life of a firefly, from the egg to the adult, many of these forms can glow. A few of species, its eggs are fluorescent, and almost all species larvae can also glow. This is why some diurnal and lightless adult fireflies are also categorized as fireflies. It is because of its larva, as well as its pupa, can glow. Some of adult fireflies, beside their light organ, their whole body can glow in the dark too. It makes us feel that it is the most magnificent wonder of all, after we see the details of the light production in fireflies. According to laboratory observation in general, most of the adult fireflies do not feed. They only rely on the liquid which is provided by the researcher in the lab to survive. Their purpose to survive is to oviposit. Some species of fireflies will deposit their eggs on the moss or the water plants. Some then go through their ovipositor and deposit the eggs in the wet mud. In most of species, its egg takes about 20 days to a month to hatch. Some species, its egg is so-called wintering egg, needs to wait all winter until next spring to hatch. These Taiwanese mountain windowed firefly's eggs are the perfect example for this case. Its larva will develop in the egg from October to next spring, then it will prepare to hatch out. We can use special equipment to photograph its overnight hatching procedure in less than 20 seconds time. When the larva of the Taiwanese mountain windowed firefly first squirms birth from an egg, its whole body is all white. It then will find a safe shelter and rest quietly. It takes a short time for it to change its body color. Its color will change into gray gradually, then into black. Meanwhile, it will get stronger. They will begin to feed after several hours. To mention about larvae's feeding habits, we need to talk about its habitats first. Some etymologists group them into aquatic type, semi-aquatic type, and terrestrial type based on their natural growth environment. The larva of an aquatic type lives in the well-covered and not polluted water. It mainly preys on the snails in the water. The larva of a semi-aquatic type rests near the water during the daytime, especially in the rocks and vegetated bushes by some small waterfalls. It will sink into the water to feed on snails at night. When it catches its prey, it will drag its prey away from the water to a place and feed on its prey slowly. There are many species in large group terrestrial type larvae in fireflies of Taiwan. They mainly inhabit in the moist environment, places such as the bottom of a dense forest, and some shady areas under the cliffs with shorter sunshine. The earthworms in the deciduous forest are the diet for some of them. The small marsh snails are also the food for certain terrestrial larvae. The large grouped snails in the forest are the main diet for many of them as well. When they find their prey, they will use their sharp mouth parts to attack the snail's antenna first. In the beginning, the snail will give out some saliva and form it into babbles to confuse the enemy, so it can find the chance to escape. As soon as the larva is confused with the situation, the slow-moving snail will find another way to escape. It is to shake its shell sideways and try to avoid the attack from the larva. It looks like the snail is almost going to succeed. Unfortunately, the final result is not as it is expected. After several minutes of the attack, the escape, the poisonous liquid, and the saliva war, the snail eventually ends up at the larva's dinner table. The larva needs to molt 6 times during its larval period. Each time, a new and bigger skin grows in place of the old one. A newly molted larva looks and acts exactly the same as it first emerges from an egg. When it is ready to shed its skin for the last time, many terrestrial-type larvae will dig in the soil or the roots to make a small chamber. It will stay inside to finish the last molting and become a pupa. But for the aquatic-type larva, they will often leave the water to find a suitable place in the wet mud and vegetative bushes near the water before it's ready for pupate. As soon as it finds the place, it will not return to the water. If we observe some pupae carefully in the lab, from the outside there is no structure of cocoon. We can easily see its body parts and organs. Therefore, we call it pupa nuda. Usually, after 6 to 7 days, we can gradually see the changes from its appearance, especially the structure of its head and wings. We can almost see the shapes of them. Up to this stage, it needs about 1 to 2 days to become a winged firefly and ready for flight. If we examine the natural habitats in Taiwan, there is Mountain Yew that creates a very large-ranged ecosystem for us, from sea level up to 4,000 meters above sea level. There are high mountains with deep valleys, streams and rivers, and many rich forests. Plus the rainy season in the spring, the northeast seasoning wind in the fall and winter, and the afternoon mists in the high mountain areas. These all provide many moist and the best habitats for fireflies. So we can say that Taiwan is a place where we can see fireflies all year round. Mainly, we will see the Luciolinae mating during spring and summer. Their flashing light looks like the stars blinking their eyes in the sky. And we will mainly see the Lucernius during fall and winter time. Their numbers are not condensed, and their light does not twinkle either. Sometimes it will fall across the dark sky and between forests like a falling star. It gives many people an unforgettable experience too. Although there are many species of the fireflies in Taiwan, their groups are in large size as well. However, the adult fireflies are short-lived, only about 1 to 2 weeks. Therefore, we do not need luck to see fireflies flying in the fields. Especially in the recent year, Taiwan's economic is growing fast, and the living standard has raised a lot. All kinds of lighting systems have become the most serious obstruction to the firefly's mating process in the nature. The life of a firefly not only is affected by human beings' activities, also is facing many survival tests, particularly when they are incubated and cultivated in the lab. Many of their larvae often are infected by the mold and die. In the wilds, the larvae are also the frequent victims in the spider web, and often become the perfect prey for the spiders. When it is trapped in the web, it will glow too. And this light is the same as the light that is produced by the egg, the larva, and the pupa, which is different from the signal for mating. It has a function of warning and scaring away the predators. According to research studies, besides the natural causes, there are other reasons, such as some habitats changing by human forces, a large quantity of insecticides being used, and the popularization of the lighting systems have caused a big number of fireflies disappearing in the wilds. In South Asia, there are some natural places in many countries are similar to Taiwan 30 or 40 years ago. Fireflies are put to use to be the main attraction for the tourism, and those places have become the world-class fireflies watching spots. Every night, tourists gather at the harbor continuously, waiting to get on boats to cruise along the river for fireflies watching. To prevent light pollution, where the tourists gather has very dark lighting, and the locations and the directions of the light are also specially designed and regulated. Exceptionally, the surrounding areas, if it is not necessary, will not install any light, or it will only install the light with a special arrangement. The projects look pretty simple, yet it is very efficient when it comes to protect the fireflies' habitats. It is worthwhile for Taiwanese firefly researchers to take a note. In addition of South Asia, Japan is a good example of bringing fireflies conservation and education into full play among Asian advanced countries. Japanese people who live nearby the fireflies' habitats are very cooperative with the restoring project. Besides to help with daily environmental protecting program, during the fireflies breeding season, every household will try to prevent the light from disturbing the fireflies' mating behavior by using the window curtains or a door. The success of the Japanese Fireflies Conservation Project is relied on the community's and the local people's recognition, as well as their teaching about many fireflies conservation concepts in elementary schools. Today's results come from their accepting the concepts since they were very young. Firelight Golden Lady and Firelight Golden Star are the names for fireflies in Taiwanese. Firelight Worm then is how a firefly called in Kejia dialogue. Fireflies and their many related nursery rhymes and folk songs have helped many older generations going through many nights when the TV was not yet invented, and have become the most memorable memory in their childhood. In recent 3 to 4 years, the decreasing of the fireflies groups have concerned many people. And the past 10 years, there are many areas which have strictly conserved with Taiwanese National Parks Authority and have already become excellent habitats for fireflies. They are moist, pollution-free, and no light pollution at night. These are fireflies' survival requirements. We believe if we well protect their habitats and work on the environmental education, with both your and my efforts, one day the fireflies in Taiwan can be one of the most brilliant roles in the nature again.